Hey up! What you just witnessed there was me completely cocking up the gears on the Honda Dax 125, setting off in top gear at 0 to 30 miles an hour in about 15 seconds with a pillion on the back. Try doing that on a BMW GS1300. From that moment on, it became known as the Honda Indefatigable. But YouTube suggested I shouldn't use the word indefatigable in the title because most of you won't understand what it means. I've got more faith in you than that. That was one of those situations where you make a bit of a fool of yourself, but you think probably not everyone's noticed. So, do you draw attention to yourself by crashing through the gears and trying to get into the right gear? Or do you take a leaf out of Arthur Fonzarelli's playbook and just pretend that you meant to do it in the first place? I plumped for the latter. Now, I'm not going to keep you in suspenders. I'm constantly being bombarded with comments from people in various videos saying that you need a big bike, at least a 650, in order to easily carry a pillion on a motorcycle. The Honda ST125 Dax completely explodes that ridiculous myth. As you can see, Paula is a lot better now. Her operation was about 8 months ago now. Time flies. This is the first time that she's rode pillion on a bike for over a year. So the Dax 125 is the perfect bike to ease her back into pillionship. And we decided not to travel too far. We went for a ride to Beverley for the day and back, which is a round trip of about 42 miles. It was a bank holiday Monday. It was the hottest day so far this year, with temperatures up in the sort of 30s. And we travelled on a mixture of A roads, B roads, and of course the town traffic in and around Beverley. Now, I wasn't quite sure what to expect from this plucky little Dax. I mean, it's a small bike, it's not particularly powerful. Top speed's somewhere in the region, well, just north of 60 miles an hour. I expect it to be bogged down to about 45, maybe 50 miles an hour if we were lucky. I didn't expect much from the suspension, but actually this bike surprised me right from the outset. Performance-wise, it didn't feel much different with a pillion on it to what it does when I'm riding it as a solo rider. That was the first big shock. I can't remember the exact figure now. I think the maximum weight capacity of this bike is about 145 kilograms, and between us, we are only just beneath that maximum weight limit. Now, having said that, you would expect a bike, you know, near its sort of operating limits to show some strain of some sort, whether it be in the handling department, the suspension, or in performance. But the Dax just seemed to shrug it off. In fact, you know, it actually handled better in my mind than it does when I'm riding it as a solo rider. I mean, the suspension as a solo rider, it is quite stiff. It's comfortable, but it is quite stiff. The progressive shocks fitted on the back have obviously been developed and tuned really well to make sure that you've got optimum comfort and handling when you have a pillion on board. We both commented at the first set of traffic lights just how comfortable the Dax is, especially in the suspension department. It was soaking up the bumps really well. Now, I did comment when I did the original walk around that the suspension looked a bit budget. You know, not cheap, but obviously it's been built down to a price. One thing that I was looking out for in particular was sounds of the suspension bottoming out with two people on it while we were on this journey, because you know, you do hit some bad bits of road here and there, and over 42 miles I can safely say the suspension never showed any signs of bottoming out, not once, which is quite a design feat to achieve when you consider this bike is running on 12-inch rims. The suspension's getting no assistance from wheel diameter whatsoever. With two people on board near to its weight limit, the bike felt precise and planted and never gave me any cause for concern whatsoever throughout the entire journey both ways. With most of our weight concentrated on the back of the bike, I expected it to sit down a bit at the back because of all the weight that's over the back wheel, but it actually stays very level, which keeps the weight well balanced between the front and back wheel, and of course doesn't compromise the steering in any way. So what about performance? You know, how does that extra weight compromise performance? I was thinking to myself while I was riding this bike, you know, comparing it to the 350s, because obviously I've done a lot of miles with Paula on the back on the 350s and solo. This little bike has something like 9.8 horsepower, less than 50% of the average 350 that I ride. You know, they're both around about 20-21 horsepower on the Classic and the GB 350. So logically you expect to have about half the performance, but that's not the case at all. I would say performance is round about 10 or 15% below the 350s that this channel regularly features. The performance differential is nowhere near what you would expect it to be. Now, I put a lot of this down to the gearbox. I've always said, you know, a lot of modern bikes, especially the modern classics, they have too many gears. You know, people want 5 gears or they want 6 gears because somehow they think that is better. But I've always said, you know, you're better off with a 3 or 4 speed box because the manufacturer can work out some much more flexible gear ratios, you know, with that configuration. And the Dax is a prime example of that. Once you get up to about 25 miles an hour, you can put it in top gear and you can leave it there, and that top gear will serve you for just about all road conditions until you drop below sort of 20 miles an hour. Now, the bike amazed me. It still zips up to 50 miles an hour really easy, really quickly. You've got no trouble keeping up with traffic. You're not holding traffic up behind you. You can move with the flow without any concerns for bothering other road users or feeling in any way intimidated by other traffic. The Dax easily holds its own. I even got it up to 60 miles an hour on 1 or 2 occasions. The bike cruises easily at 45 to 55 miles an hour. I'm sure some inclines might pull that down a little bit or headwinds, but it just doesn't really matter on this bike. Realistically, I would say that carrying a Pillion only knocks about 6 miles an hour off the top speed. Now, as I accidentally demonstrated right at the beginning of this video, this bike has a centrifugal clutch. You don't need to be precisely in the right gear for each manoeuvre that you need to make. It's designed to be a semi-automatic gearbox. If you get things a little bit wrong and you're in too high a gear for the circumstances that you're in, the centrifugal clutch will detect that and it will kick in to take some of the pressure off the engine so the engine can still spin reasonably freely. Realistically, on the A and B roads, you rarely even have to change down into 3rd gear unless you're negotiating something like a roundabout. And if you do need to come to a complete stop for any reason, this bike has a little trick up its sleeve. You leave it in top gear until you're ground to a complete halt. Then you click the gear lever down once at the front, that puts it into neutral, click it down once more and you're in first. It's a sort of a neutral finder, and thanks to the viewers that have these bikes that told me about that, otherwise I wouldn't have known about it. Now, this doesn't work in any other gear, it only works if you're in top gear. If need be, you can get a reasonably respectable down change from 4th to 3rd. Again, the trick is you click it down into the next gear or the next lower gear, you hold your foot there and then you gradually release your foot to feed the power in. It's very easy to get a smooth down change from 4th to 3rd. It's a little bit more challenging in the other lower gears, but like I say, There's no need to constantly worry about being in the right gear with this bike. The automatic clutch will step in and help you out. And Honda has balanced the gear ratios out on this 4-speed box really well, giving the engine enormous flexibility whether you're in town or out on the open road. The gearbox is a little bit of an acquired art, but it is oh so satisfying when you learn how to do it properly and you start getting it right. The trick is just not to overthink gear usage. Right, let's look at it from the Pillion's perspective. The seat size is adequate. I wouldn't say it was generous, but it's adequate. There's just enough room for two well-grown adults. If you're of a slighter build, you're going to find it much easier. We did feel a little bit cramped, but it was still comfortable. The Dax got a big thumbs up from Paula. Now, from her seating perspective, what she did like, and this is just one of her things, she was able to see over my shoulder easy. She could see the road ahead, and she could see what speed I was travelling. Now, this surprised me because the seat looks quite flat. I'm 6 feet tall, Paula's 5'4". Yet, amazingly, she was able to see the road ahead quite easily. Now, this is important, I think, for a lot of Pillions from a safety perspective. If they see hazards coming up, they're ready for them and nothing catches them by surprise. She found the seat comfortable. There was just enough room for her to sit behind me, and she found that the large grab rail that's fitted as standard to the bike was easy to access, and she had plenty of room to move her hands around to give them a rest and change position. One thing that she did like when mounting and dismounting the bike is that she didn't have to step up onto the bike. You know, because it's so low, she could easily just swing a leg up and over it and get on quite easily. She liked the position of the foot pegs. I mean, she did suffer a little bit of pain, but I mean, it's over a year since she was last riding Pillion on a bike, and it takes time for muscles to redevelop to get back into the habit of doing that. But she found the foot peg placement good, and she found it comfortable for most of the journey. The final verdict was that she loved the Dax. She thought it had a fantastic 1960s vibe. And her personal thoughts was that it was the perfect little sort of weekend scoot for a couple, or even to strap on the back of a camper van and go on a longer holiday and use that as your general mode of transport when you reach your destination. She loved it. As far as I'm concerned, the braking on this bike is well up to spec. I mean, you know, it's not a performance bike. It doesn't need performance brakes. They're adequate, they stop when you want them to stop you, and there's plenty of feel through the lever. On the front brake, the back brake does feel a little bit dead, but it works. Now, when I first saw the Dax, yeah, I could see the 1960s influence. The Dax was originally released back in 1969. I didn't realise just how iconic it actually is. While we're filming the B-roll at the parking space and waiting for someone to move out of the parking bay so that we could leave the bike, a couple of people came over and commented about it. You know, they remembered them back in the 1970s. And it was obvious that the Dax had rekindled some nostalgic memories in those people. So Honda have obviously done the job properly, because that is exactly the emotion that a modern classic is meant to provoke. And the Dax ST125 proves beyond any shadow of doubt in my mind that it's perfectly capable of carrying a Pillion. You know, it's the perfect bike for commuting to work during the week, and then, you know, for a couple on a weekend, if you just want to go out and have some fun, do a little bit of sightseeing, it's there. You know, it can carry you both. It can take you for a day out. Or, you know, as Paula suggested, it's the ideal bike for clamping onto the back of a camper van and taking away on holiday for you. It's just such a easy little machine to ride and live with a warm, cute, cuddly character that just seems to put a smile on everyone's face. Now, I haven't been able to pin down any sort of definitive fuel consumption figures as yet. The first tank, it came to me with a full tank. The first tank I got 100 miles out of it before the final bar started flashing on the display. And since refilling I've done about another 80 miles, so I've got a little bit more work to do on that. I'll do that in the final review. Most owners say you can get about 140 to 150 miles to the gallon out of it. The tank itself only holds 3.8 litres. So based on my experience so far, I would say that that is quite realistic. Right, I'm gonna love you and leave you now. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like. Hype this video if the hype button is available to you, and consider becoming a subscriber to the channel if you're not already subscribed. You can help me out in other ways via the Patreon page or PayPal donations. Details of how to do that are in the video description down below, or you can use the super thanks button. Take advantage of this brilliant weather that we're having at the moment, and if you're riding, please ride safely, and I'll see you soon.